We good?
I know, I just crossed the street with him.
That works.
Worked good. And you have the Zoom link?
We good?
I know, I just, oh, sorry. Crossed the street with him. That's me. The delay on the YouTube.
Is that
screen.
camera pointing the right way?
No. There's something, I think it's because of this.
There you go. Look at that. It's alive. Yikes. And Steve,
Good morning, everyone.
hey, we good? Were you recording?
Yes, we are good.
Okay. Sounds good. I'd like to call the December 6th, 2024 City of Geneva IDA meeting to order. David, can you review the mission statement for us? In
Come
a
back to
minute?
yeah. Yeah. I just emailed it to you. All right, the Geneva Industrial Development Agency mission is to promote the city's economic development, job opportunities, quality of life. Page. It's created to promote, develop, encourage, and assist in acquiring, constructing, maintaining, equipping, and furnishing certain types of projects and facilities to advance the job opportunities, health, general prosperity, economic welfare, recreation opportunities, the citizens of the city of Geneva.
Thank you. That's a reminder why we're here today. We have the agenda before us. Hopefully, most of you looked it over. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda? All right. So we don't have to approve that if there's no changes, right? All right. Then we have the November minutes are also in the packet. Motion to approve the November minutes and any corrections to that.
I'll move approval.
Second, Jan, okay, any discussion, anything in there that's, okay, all in favor, say aye.
Right.
Okay. Financial report, is Adam showing up today, or
I don't think so.
is there anything in here you wanna just skip it at this point? I mean, we have the information, I don't know if there's anything much to discuss. I still didn't see that $400,000 thing in there. From, it was in the minutes that he was gonna look into it, so we can
I'll connect with them
bring
on
that up again.
And this is that time, can I help me remember that I need you and you to sign bank documents to get him full access after the meeting.
Okay,
They're in my office.
all right, sounds good. Hello, Catherine. Right, so yes, so there are some things that we will pass over approval of them, financial without being here. Is that correct? Okay. So without further ado, Kristen, thank you for joining us. Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
Yeah. Why don't we hear from
Miles? Morning, Miles. You're still muted. Can you hear us?
He's first. Oh, no.
No, he's blinking.
Can we just?
Miles, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
We can now. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I'm just in a weird spot here. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, morning. So anything new at the GDC to report?
We've had a couple of showings in the last month. It's been a little slow on that front, because of the holidays, but still working with one internal tenant about expanding some space. That's gonna happen here soon. And then just dealing with some, just roofing issues with the building. We're still we've had a lot of heavy rains before this snow, and we were cleaning up from that, but otherwise all quiet on the Western Front.
How's Elementary Wine doing with their leasehold improvements?
Yeah, they got their one space up and running, and they're in the, aging point. They've got the wine in the barrels, and now they're looking to expand. They have some cool ideas and some other, I think, other wineries they might want to kind of either co-pack with or do some sort of expansion with. So that's kind of exciting. So we're working out the details on that. And that would be taking up more of that space across from where they currently are.
Good. Sounds good. Any questions of Miles while we have him on the phone?
No,
All right. Well, fine. All right. Well, thank you, Miles, for the report. Thanks for putting all the information together for us as you do every month.
Yeah, good. I'm glad that's helpful. You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
And I just want to say that Hannah has been putting a lot more information in, and I think it's useful, and I just want to say thank you.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
Very
I'll
good.
definitely pass that along. Thanks for saying that.
Okay. Now, new business, the GD's report presentation. Kristen Collins from CNH is CNX is here. And thank you for making the trip to Geneva, and we look forward to your presentation.
Yeah, Zoom connection is happening.
And I'm going to make you a co-host. So you should be able to share now. Mute your speaker just so we don't get feedback.
Is that,
that's one part of the tour I did not see. No,
oh, you didn't get up there?
No.
That part? I think it's only one story.
yeah.
They're not updating based on what's on your computer. Oh,
There we go.
Right.
My glasses. Don't able to see that or this. Choose one. We'll go with that one. All right, so. Yeah, so the drive down here was actually a little. I think I went through 8 different weather patterns between my house and here, but all good.
Here.
I'm glad I left as early as I did. So what I wanted to do is have an opportunity to talk with you all in person, go through where our team is at this point with everything that they've compiled, with their findings and their recommendations for the building, and have a chance to get some questions and feedback from this group so that we can make sure that your concerns are answered and that you have a good path forward with what to do with this information, and not just a report to sort of put on the shelf. We want to make sure that it's actionable going forward, and that it's something that can really be used and as a good tool for you going forward. So I'll walk through this just to give you an understanding of what our approach and methodology was, and what the next steps are. And I think that'll help us go through here. So we'll, run through how we went about our process, what each of the areas were that we looked at, what all the different trades are that we covered, what the recommendations are, and what I see as the next steps. So basically, this is the breakdown of the different parts of the building, and we talked about this a little bit before, and these are kind of the different main areas of the building and the different stages of the building was constructed in. One of the pieces that I think is a little bit interesting in the fact that the area that we have identified as that demo area is what's identified as really the most historic piece of the building. And when I started doing some research, and that's my area of specialty out of all the trades that are involved. I'm an architect, but I'm a preservation architect. So I really started digging into some of the history. If there was a valid reason and path to save and preserve and restore that building, that would definitely be my first choice. So I kind of dug in and did some research on that. And it turns out that the more distinct and valuable piece of history in that building is actually the sawtooth portion that was built at the same time. And I included in the report, and if you look in some of the, they're not in this slideshow, but I can show you where they'll fall in the report here. There's some early Sanborn maps that'll show when the building was constructed, and it will indicate like the brick building was done first, and then when they built the sawtooth portion around it, as the can factory was in operation, the brick portion became vacant really quickly, but the operational piece kept going in the sawtooth part of the building. So, that kept going, and that was used, and the brick portion of it kind of grew out of use really quickly. But the other piece was really the functional part of that. So I found a lot more information on that part of the building. So if there was, something to be, there's a lot more information available on that portion of it.
You're just having a seizure.
So I thought that was a very interesting piece of history there. Another kind of side note, the photos that you sent me for the interior of that building, we were wondering if there was any activity happening right now to move the documents that are stored there and archive and get those to a safe place.
So I can speak to some of that. I did an inventory of the city's records there, a rough inventory, and the court inventoried their records. About half look like they belong to the court. They need to figure out what they can and can't keep. I pretty much know, but I'm going to be applying for grant funding through New York State Archives. Those grants are usually announced in January, applications due in March, and find my path forward from there.
If there's any way that we can assist, there's actually a woman in our office that handles our archives and kind of specializes in that. Maybe I could connect you with her, because I think she would, on a personal level, really like to help with this.
Oh yeah, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, because when I saw those photos, I was just like, oh, I need to get those out of there.
And they're fairly damaged records at this point, just from the moisture, vandalism, animal damage.
Yeah, but there's a treasure trove of information.
It is, and there's
So.
some very old records in there from the 1800s.
So,
And some surprisingly new ones too.
Yeah, like 2000.
Yeah.
yeah, so,
So your research didn't indicate any change to your recommendation on demolition?
no, the recommendation is the same. It's still pretty much causing more damage than there would be any reason to salvage and reuse it. I think you'll still gain a lot more by eliminating it and sealing those buildings that are around it. I think there is some value to retaining the walls that are engaged in the other buildings that will stay, and looking at using the space that's left over for the DPW and maybe turning that into salt storage, or using that space heat or something that the space can be used, but I would not put money into restoring that building. I think you would be spending 3, 4, 5 times as much money as you would just to take it down and clean up the space. And definitely way more than you would in building new for the same, DPW area space. So, the team that we brought to look at this space was, myself as an architect and 2 other architects, plus a whole team of engineers that were structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, communications, site civil, hazardous material. That's everybody. But everyone came on the same day, investigated the building while we were here together, walked around with the facility manager, who is a wealth of knowledge and knows the building really well, knows the systems really well. In addition to spending a lot of time at our office reviewing information that was sent ahead of time, doing a lot of investigation on other projects that had happened before. There was a environmental study that was done previously that had a lot of background information on the building, very helpful. And then a few of our engineers also made a return visit so that they could do some walks on the roof and get some more up close looks at the rooftop units and some of the other equipment that was up there. The red, yellow, green system that we use is a real easy way to kind of indicate that red are the things that are going to be marked that are a little bit more emergency stuff that is causing a lot of concern, things that should be replaced immediately, either because they are a safety issue or because they are doing extreme damage and are going to continue to do damage. Yellow things are things that are things that should be replaced or repaired in the near term, because same reasons, either they are going to cause a safety concern or they are going to cause damage. And then the green things are things that are working well and that can be planned for maintenance or replacement in their regular lifetime. And now we'll get into some of the assessment issues. It's not just me. So, the roof as kind of a big topic, very obviously different over different building sections. Now, the building B is obviously newer, so that one gets in general a green rating. And what I would say for that is that really gets very general maintenance labels on it. So things like making sure that the drains are cleaned out and just very things that are being done anyway, so that that's all in good shape. So they put a target of 2038 for replacement on that. So that's a regular life of that system. So that's good. Now the building A, the 2-story portion of that falls into one of the things that we are listing as the do right away things, but it's a very easy fix that I think you'll get a lot of benefit from. And you can kind of see in this picture, this is the one where the last roof project that was done, they just didn't finish the flashing on it, and the fascia flashing is missing. So it looks like, and I don't necessarily want to criticize someone else's work, but it looks like the roofing contractor simply didn't take responsibility for something that wasn't called out on the drawings, where they should have provided a very complete system. They didn't offer to fit something that wasn't called out specifically. So they left it undone is what it looks like. And there's a situation where they're allowing water to come into the building through that wall, and it's letting water come in at the head of those windows and run down the whole wall system, but can be repaired really easily with some inexpensive flashing. So very quick, very easy, very inexpensive fix, but will seal up that entire wall. So you'll get a lot of benefit out of a pretty simple thing. Another easy thing to fix on this particular roof area is that there are no roof drains. When they put in this EPDM roof on the covering on this roof, they didn't install any drains. There could be a couple of different reasons for that. It might be because the interior layout is not entirely decided, and they weren't sure where they wanted those drains to come down. And that's somewhat valid, but our opinion is that it's more important to get the drains in, and then as the layout shifts, we can redirect that if needed, but it's more important to get them in now, because right now there's water puddling on the roof. So since the water has already decided where the low point is, we'll just put a drain there, and then we can adjust the pipes later if we need to. If the layout really dictates that a wall needs to be someplace else. Flashing and some drains will extend the life of that roof, you know, another 10 years beyond what you get out of it.
Is Miles still on?
Yes.
Okay, so he's here. And that's what.
Yep.
So that puts that in a yellow category, but on the, you know, extending the life of that roof, I think it's a good value for what you would be spending on that. Now, the sawtooth roof, unfortunately, there's a lot of it, and it's not the most inexpensive fix. I would say that the right side of the sawtooth roof is because of the geometry of it. You can break out sections to do at a time. Unfortunately, those sections do not align with the floor plan underneath it. They kind of are opposite of each other. So it isn't a situation where you can do a room at a time. The sawtooth runs in the opposite direction of the way that your floor plan is set up. So you're really doing linear stretches of the building at a time, but I could foresee a phase of doing, you know, 3 stripes of it and then do a few more of it. So there is a way that you could break that down. But in addition to doing the surface of the, you know, the exterior surface of the roof, you'll see in the structural report that some of the structure also needs to be repaired in that sawtooth roof as well. So those are those are counted as 2 different prices. So I want to point that out so that those are looked at together, okay? So that one is listed as red, and there are some repairs where they're pointed out as things that are more of a patch that should be done pretty soon. Whereas a long-term roofing project is something that can be planned for in a longer term fashion.
And the sawtooth, if you found that it's significant because of its history, right? To keep it.
I wouldn't. It would just be incredibly costly to replace the entire thing with something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'd have to build up the structure and then
Yeah,
have a whole,
right,
have the complete opening and work on it.
right,
Okay,
right, yeah.
okay.
I
We
wouldn't,
had
I
talked
wouldn't,
as a group in the past about the very big picture feature of this, as that maybe being something that could just be tear down that entire section and have space for a taller, newer building.
Huge, huge expense.
And the foundation of this building wasn't designed for a taller structure. So I would eliminate that thinking because of that. And the sawtooth long-term thinking presents some interesting potential because the sawtooth design was really environmentally ahead of its time. Okay, so, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later on, but it really gives you some opportunities to tie in some potential grant funding aimed at, you know, some solar projects, because the sawtooth design was set up so that the vertical portions are facing north to let in light. The angled portions are facing south. They are ideal for placing solar panels on. Like it's really designed to work very well. So I wouldn't turn my back on that. I'd embrace what you already have, fix that up, and then use it to its full potential.
And the source of the grant would be from where, you think, to restore that type of, take advantage of that type of orientation?
Well, our grant team is compiling a list to go directly with these recommendations and identifying ones that are available right now and ones that are potentially being awarded in the near future. Most of them align with sustainability projects, mechanical upgrades, or electrical upgrades, transitioning to renewable energy. So that would, even though it's not necessarily a re-roofing project, it would be taking this roof geometry and making it very, very useful. That, to me, that would be a benefit of maintaining this geometry and rather than eliminating it and going to something that isn't as efficient. The last roof that's shown there is the one that's on the DPW, and this is the most historic one.
I think this actually isn't DPW.
It's a little portion that's
Between the two-story part and the sawtooth, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not DPW,
Yeah, it's down at the other end of the building.
but that's okay. We know what it is. Maybe we can come up with a different name, because I think most of us call it whatever with the tenant that was there when we first became involved, so I would call it the pretzel logic space, but some people might call it.
Let me make sure I have it.
You're way
Yeah.
Let me mark
I
it
don't
on
think
here.
there's skylights in the DPW, not that I remember seeing.
Down in here though, right? Right here, between these two?
No.
Or the blue and the
No,
orange.
between the blue and the
The
orange.
second,
here?
right there. There's a little valley there before the sawtooth starts, and that's what you're seeing, is the edge of the sawtooth. That's the west end of the
It's on
sawtooth.
the opposite end of.
And then that valley is where.
So
those-
maybe that is the wrong photo and they
I'm
did
gonna-
mean the
Yeah,
DPW.
Okay.
When you're taking notes on that map, also it shows building B as two-story and it's one.
Yeah, the purple, dark purple is one story.
Labeling issues.
Yeah.
You're right.
Inside, well. A couple of the recommendations have to do with, a little bit, some longer term inclusive studies having to do with ADA compliance, egress compliance, and fire code compliance. And I would roll those all into one overall study for the entire facility. as we went through, we noted very obvious things and made some recommendations for egress hardware at specific exits where it was lacking. And ADA accessibility that were very apparent. Where some upgrades can be addressed. I think the whole for that kind of for those items, it is something that a facility should address overall, and it's something that should be put in place as a standard for the building so that it can be maintained, especially for a place that has tenants that will be changing over time, so that as adjustments are made, you can make sure that whenever partitions are moved or something, that you have a guide that you can look at to make sure that you're not creating a new problem as something is adjusted. So I think it would be wise, as that study is done, that the document that you're left with gives you basically a template so that you know that, if you have to move a door, these are the clearances we want to maintain around it so that we're not causing any new problems. And I just think that would be a nice sort of safeguard for you to have, so that you don't really have to worry as you make those changes going forward. Obviously, things like the egress stair, it looks really bad, but it's the amount of work that needs to be done is rather cosmetic, and some replacing of handrails and adding some new stair treads and bringing that up to code compliance is a rather simple task. It looks a little rough. The entrance there, the second photo, that one is, it needs a little bit of cosmetic repair as far as the condition of the stair and the ramp, but that was the one that it's a main exit of the building, but it's missing some egress hardware. So I think that one might actually have the door that was locked. So something that needs to be addressed rather a little bit more urgently. So it can still be locked from the outside, but just have some panic hardware from the inside. On the mechanical side, this is where I see a big opportunity to match up some grant funding with equipment upgrades. There's a lot of overlap, both with energy efficiency and with building occupant air quality initiatives. So we've seen a lot of funding initiatives that can align those things as well. That's sort of a post-COVID result. So we've been able to even write a lot of grants that utilize ARPA funding for things like that. In that second visit from our mechanical engineer, he was able to kind of nail down that only one of the 5 roof units are functioning at this point. So that really bumps that issue up to a red concern. The other ones he left at putting those in more of the long-term planning situation, simply because those rooftops are something that needs to be handled more immediately.
I had a question about this section. There's like 4 different $1.5 million projects, like 1.5 million for control systems, 1.5 million for ducted heating and cooling, 1.5 million for piped heated and cooling, and 1.5 million for air handling and ventilation. Is that 4 different projects, or is that we could do all of the HVAC for the building with heat pumps or something for that price.
If they were tackled as standalone projects, that's how the pricing would work. We wouldn't recommend that they be done that way. If they were, obviously you would design a mechanical project to encompass a system, not a standalone parts and pieces. So that's where a more comprehensive, full design, full budget, full,
Okay.
estimate would come into play. These costs really help you kind of ballpark what those large systems would be. And, when you're looking at like a full EMS system for a building of this size, that's what that number would cover, but you don't necessarily need to bring the entire building online at once. That's one of those things where you kind of have to start thinking about, how do we phase this? What department do we bring on? Is it something where you do building A first and get all of that up to date and on a system, an automatic system where it's running, then bring each tenant on as it's upgraded, gets added to the system. So those 1.5 costs, I think, would be broken down as you were phasing that out.
So I apologize. I feel like I'm still not understanding. I'm relatively new to this. So when I was doing the math, we looked at section 6 and section 7. And I was adding all that together. I stopped adding at about 8 million. So when we're looking at this, when you're talking about addressing it as a whole in a section, do you still think that, okay, to bring all of those systems up to date, about $8 million? We would break it down by each building? Or is it then once we combine everything together, the total cost for all the renovations, if we tackle everything at once in each section, could be dropped down to 4 to 5 million for comprehensively? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And that's why this building is a little bit tricky, because looking at the way the systems are set up, floor plans are set up, are kind of opposite each other, right? So the systems are sort of running linear throughout the building, and the floor plan is kind of chunked this way. So they're kind of fighting each other the way that it's laid out, which makes it very difficult to phase how you tackle projects. Where normally I would say, let's do department by department. So you're getting the whole office done at once. It's brand new and all the systems are new. But the plumbing does this. So you can't necessarily fix the plumbing over here and then all the plumbing over here is still crappy. So what we've been trying to do as a team is say, okay, where does this system start and stop? Where does it make sense to upgrade it to this point? And how many departments are we actually fixing if we do that? So that's kind of the puzzle that we're trying to make sense of in a spreadsheet so that it actually breaks it into projects. And I'll say that that's the stage that we're kind of at right now, and that I'm hoping to bring a little bit more clarity back to my team. The spreadsheet that we're working on breaks it down into basically 5-year chunks and then departments on the other side, so that we can really come up with a bit of a timeline that goes 5 years by 5 years. The things that are clear to me right now is that the water quality issue, the way to address that in my mind is to start with the water service and replace that first. The rooftop units don't really give you a choice. They don't work. They need to be replaced. But there's a couple of things that don't leave us. So
Rooftop is just for air conditioning. What is it for? What are they typically for?
yes.
Air
Yes,
conditioning, right?
Yeah, and some of those have already started to be individually substituted with the units that are underneath the awnings. Right, so you've been doing heat pumps, air source heat pumps with those in smaller sections, which might make sense if you have smaller tenant areas, so that you can
Control.
do something a little bit more controlled for smaller areas. So I think maybe a little bit more unique solution for your tenant spaces might not be a bad, might not be a bad way to go because of the way that your building is going to be used. The variety of tenants that you will have don't necessarily meet a one-size-fits-all solution for a building. So that's where a very flexible layout and design is going to serve you really well. Where you have spaces that you have a long-term tenant that you think is going to be there for, for an extended amount of time, and you know what their operation is going to be, then you can really turn your attention to, the ones that need the right amount of ventilation. And, there was some concerns in the DPW area that they don't have enough air exchange in there, and there's not enough ventilation, not enough louvers, not enough of that happening. So if we know that that use is going to stay the same, that can be upgraded and designed specifically for that use. And some of the other spaces where it's needs to stay more flexible, I think, that space needs to be designed for flexibility. So the way that it was set up before and the way that these rooftop units were sized probably doesn't make sense for the way the building's used right now. So I wouldn't go out and buy something to replace what's there. It needs to be done with a completely new approach with the way that the building is used now. But the water service, I think our team has kind of all come to the conclusion that that's kind of a starting point.
Mhm.
And then as going from where the service comes into the building, tracing where the supply lines are that need to be replaced, we would be able to camera those and see which ones are galvanized and which ones need to come out. We would know which ones are then going to be brand new. And maybe that's where you focus your renovation budget to the spaces that are going to have new service lines. And maybe those are your brand new tenant spaces. And those get focused on as your next to be leased. So I think that might be a way, that might be a method to decide where to spend some money. And that could also be a way to determine what portion of the sawtooth roof gets addressed more extensively first. I think there's definitely some patching that happens to make sure that more damage doesn't occur. But as far as doing full roof upgrade, I think that has to happen based on what's happening on the floor plan below. So I would let the plumbing replacement tell us what areas of the floor plan get updated. So it's a little bit of the underground driving what happens above ground. And it's kind of a back and forth. Like I said, it's a little bit of a puzzle, but I feel like that's really the way that we have to unravel this in order for it to not be a giant $10 million chunk. So
It's Bob, right? Did Bob indicate that some of the service lines are broken or leaking, or feed meters, that if there's a meter running and no one's using it, are we losing a lot of water?
yes.
We are? Okay. So I guess you could study that
Yeah, so the plumbing, basically the sections have galvanized pipes. It indicated where those were the areas that had pretty consistent leaking. But the service line coming into the building was the main source of concern. Felt that that should be replaced first, and then starting from there, identify the branches that had not been replaced yet, target those for phased replacement and updating. Because some of them have been replaced, and I think those are the areas of the building where you're seeing good stuff and tenants are happy. That you can probably tell which ones are which without doing the camera, but we would do that to verify. So yeah, it says the existing galvanized piping is failing and should be replaced.
I was just thinking, as you're talking, that if I was a prospective tenant, I would want to have my own thermostat and be able to just and have it, I pay for that, that power use. And then I would adjust it way down at night,
Yeah.
bring it back up during the day. I'd be happy, I'd have good lighting, and I could flush the toilets and all the water is good. So if you had a tenant that was willing to pay market rate, let's say they wanted 5,000 square feet, could you just do I don't know anything about what I'm going to say because I know about the water service and outside stuff, but and some plumbing. But if you were to say, okay, we'll give you a mini split or something because you're outside on an outside wall, and that would feed your 5,000 square feet. Wouldn't that be the most cost-effective approach?
For heating and cooling, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
that heating and cooling, and then you have to do lighting and you have to have water. So, and the sewer works. Is the sewer okay? Is this sanitary sewer?
As far as we are able to tell,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, it's the supply that's of concern.
So would it be smart for us to market like crazy and get somebody in there and just promise these improvements as long as they pay the $50 a square foot or something huge,
I think that going with the mini split and having as much of the utilities centralized and tenant controlled and doing sub-metering is the way that I would do it. And I think tenants appreciate having that control and having autonomy and having the flexibility of knowing what their costs are going to be. And like you said, being able to adjust and being able to monitor their own costs. I would appreciate that as a tenant, and as a landlord, I know that folks that have rented from me have appreciated that. So that would leave just the sprinkler and plumbing.
I guess, and then
really
the common areas like the ways and all that. So maybe the central boiler system for a building this huge is not the way to go.
Right.
It's also mostly gas right now, correct? With the solar panel idea on the south, could that be converted to the heating system? Was there enough capacity if you were to design a system to use solar to electrify the building and do the heat?
We could definitely run some fairly quick calculations based on the
Because
roof area.
if that's something that a grant could be written up around, and that might be a way of mitigating both of these issues.
Just want to call attention to the time.
Correct.
We have about 10 minutes to 9:30, but I have a 9:40, so I just want to let
Okay.
you guys know. I don't, if you want to meet longer, it's, but
Why don't we stop it here if we could? And there's just a couple questions about the use of the building, and of course, we don't have the funding to do any of this stuff, so. We have to, apply for grants, so, and we've said this before, one of the reasons for selecting your firm was because of your department for grant writing. I see the counties here, and we're gonna, try to, no surprise, I'm sure, partner with the county to help us put together some of the aspects of this. That's why planning is so important to us.
Yes.
And then investigating other uses of the building. We've had not a lot, I've had a number of people who I think that have asked if they could be used, if some of the second floor space or even some of the larger space could be used for residential and converting that over. Although I know there was a concern about the hazardous waste that possibly would be there after a phase 2 would be executed. So I mean, these are all kind of possible scenarios and how we would fund that and how we would approach that and who we would partner with to to get some of this stuff done. We have a capacity to borrow a little bit of money, but nowhere near what we're talking about. The 8, 10, $12 million range. But it was $20 million at one point, so I think it's come down. So that's good. So these are the things that we're trying to kind of extract from your report so that we can make some of these decisions and kind of divide it up. I mean, I know David's idea is to piecemeal this, to get some of it going, but I think some of it has to be global in the sense of some of the plumbing and that would affect the whole building, but I believe we can do sections of the building specific to possibly a tenant. But I mean, our problem right now is almost all of the leases there are sub-market by substantial amount.
The potential for residential, is that been explored at all as far as maybe partnering with any programs that are transitional in nature? Working with an organization that might be moving somebody from less stable housing to more stable housing to workforce training to, are there any organizations of that nature that might be interested in using a space like that?
There hasn't been any significant discussions about design or space or that kind of thing, just the idea that, oh, maybe it could.
We've done a few projects that have merged a bunch of those types of groups together that have been fairly successful and very fundable. So I think that's worth exploring. So how do we continue and maybe propose some thoughts? Yeah, I think that's a really
Okay. Any other questions, Kristen?
Are you about at the limit of your fee, I would say, right now?
Yeah, if I go to the end of. I'll give you the. This is where I want to just make sure that I had everyone's questions from here.
Sure.
And I think I have enough information to kind of pose my final questions to our team so that we can give you a really clear roadmap. And I appreciate your questions so that I can really clarify our spreadsheet and tie it to a phase plan so that it kind of gives you some guidance of how to proceed, tying it to our grant suggestions, and knowing that making some recommendations about using that upper floor for residential, I think is a really unique opportunity. But I would like to deliver that final report by the 20th, and then obviously if you have follow-up questions, I'm pretty invested.
That sounds good.
At this point,
Right.
so I
Appreciate
you make something of it.
I think that funding packages and opportunities is really what we're most dying to see And there was also the other really short-term question that I had, you were gonna follow up with the mechanical folks. That the sprinkler that serves the part slated for demolition also serves other part of the buildings. It's leaking, it's freezes because it's unheated. And we need.
It's a wet system.
We need
unfortunately.
it was originally a wet system, but it's dry now, but
It's
it
dry
gets
now.
wet.
Our fire protection engineer did provide me a little write-up on and some
Okay.
diagrams that I could pass along to you. So, yeah, he felt like it was very doable and that there were shut-off points along the way that could be handled pretty straightforward, so.
Okay. It's good. All right, so we'll look forward to the final and appreciate you again taking the time to come down to see us. We've got just a few minutes here. For to be. The next thing on the agenda is the bid funding, the request. Catherine, thank you for submittal. Do you have anything on that, David?
Sure, I can put that up.
So I'll start because while you're looking
Sure.
for that, since we only have a few minutes. So thank you for hearing me out. I know that the stopgap funding that was provided 2 years ago was supposed to be one and done. As city council started to give us more money to take care of the DRI project that was now online and to also take care of the additional weeds and mowing that was a result of the herbicide ban. So over the last couple of years, we worked with community partners. We hired master gardeners and labor as maintenance supervisors who have worked with grant writing and really tying it the Cornell Agritech and the IPM center up there. So I feel like we've made really great progress, but unfortunately, city council cut our budget this year. We had originally negotiated with the city to remove mowing and weeding for the most part. So we were able to drop our budget from what we had originally anticipated to $122,000. That did include some money for economic development. The city council, when they made their cuts forecasting budget, cut our budget by $30,000. So that leaves us with $92,000 for maintenance for this coming year. This is a little on the nose, I know, but it was because really that extra money, the budget that I presented to the city was bare bones, and that was the money for our master gardener and our labor supervisor, maintenance supervisor. So I'm hoping that the IDA and the LDC can pledge money to us, splitting the cost and or breaking it however you'd like to, so that I can keep these employees going into the new year. One of the agreements that I made with the LDC is that if I can find funding for them elsewhere, that I will use that. That's the goal, is for us to be self-sustainable. I mean, we do get the bid assessment tax to help fund some of our programming. As years have gone by since 1986, when we were first formed, it used to be a working board, and the complete amount of the funds would go into a project, like a capital project for downtown. As with other bids over time, the maintenance projects were a way for the bids to do the work for the municipalities at a lower price, because I'm not obligated to the union contracts and or some of those union labor requirements. So for me, I can hire Jill to do 8 hours a week during the season downtown and at the lakefront. That's the other part of the proposal. We're going to take over the lakefront landscaping beds, except around the Welcome Center. So I can hire somebody to do that, whereas the city can't. And unfortunately, I really don't want to lose our experts in this position. And I do need somebody else to help me go around and just, this week we've got overgrown grasses in this section and point our maintenance crew in the right direction. I have a really great maintenance crew who worked very hard over the last couple of years to train and bring up to speed. And I don't want to lose them. So, questions?
Yeah, so any comments, questions?
I just want to say I value the work you're doing. I don't really understand how it has to fall on bid, but it seems that that's the way it's gone. I know about the funding and paying for these people versus going through union employees and so forth. But I mean, if this is our only option, I really support it because it's important work you're doing.
So how much do you need, how much do you need to get to just provide basic services that we,
Is the ask 16,100?
Yes.
Between the IDA and the LDC.
So between.
So you're saying split
LDC
16,000?
Yes.
The LDC had said that they would do half if the IDA would.
So, again, not to move this along too much, but so if there's any other questions about it. I mean, we all know the work that's been done, certainly the last 2 years, and that we did fund it. Help with the funding. So I guess the ask, the request is really 8,500.
8,050.
50, sorry. This is
If I
just,
can, the one thing I will say that we have to be cautious of, like I said before, same thing with the Y project. The LDC has a lot more flexibility. I guess my initial question, because something like this, it's essentially going towards, and correct me if I'm wrong, towards somebody's salary, essentially, or their hourly rate to pay for it, which technically is going to be outside of the purview of the IDA. However, do we know, is there any, whether it's informal or whatever, services that the bid provides to the IDA? Do we know that?
As far as economic development goes.
Yeah.
So I'm asking for this, I can rewrite the proposal whichever way works for you. Really, most of what we do is economic development. We spend a lot of time analyzing foot traffic, visits, true trade areas, leakage, to try and make sure that we're bringing people into downtown Geneva.
so if we reclassified it, Steve, to be something like that to support our economic development element, you'd feel more comfortable with that?
Yeah, and typically what we do with something like that, just so that it's not, IDA paying, Jill, for example. Typically what we've done in these situations is enter into a simple, couple page services agreement where IDA, engages the bid to undertake exactly what you were just saying. And then bid, once you have the money, you can do with it what you want at that point, which could go towards this purpose. So that would be the way that I say we structure, at least on the IDA front. The LDC front, they've got a lot more flexibility. But I would say, if anything, just structure it as a services agreement, and with the things that you just noted that the bid does. And I'd have to check your procurement policy as well, but I would assume that something like that would fit within, one of the kind of standard exceptions of, this is kind of a unique service. And I would argue that the bid has a unique or kind of leg up on analyzing stuff like that with the city of Geneva anyways. So I think that way it would be doable.
Okay, with that in mind, you want to bring this to a vote?
Sure.
I'd like a motion to approve the $8,050. And with the caveat that it be reframed to kind of meet Stephen's concern about our legal ramifications. I have a motion on the floor, second.
I'll second
Okay, any discussion, any questions?
it. So that the things that we can fund is just general, not identified as salaries.
Correct, that's apparently
Okay.
the way I understood it.
Great.
It's just,
Yep.
it's just that they're supporting our efforts and we're gonna give them a
Yep.
fee, or
Uh-huh.
we're paying them for those efforts
Got it.
instead of All right. All right, so second, no other further conversation, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Yeah,
we discussed this quite a bit as a committee and we had, yeah,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
but this is, let's hope that, the next year, that some of these issues are resolved.
So I'm looking towards some additional grant funding so that at least maintenance supervisor position is self-sustaining. And
Well, that's good.
unfortunately, as we continue on, we're gonna have to cut services.
I think we should make it known that the city council should be funding this.
Yeah.
And that it's certainly makes sense. It's such an improvement when the streets are swept and kept clean and I don't have to go around picking up garbage.
That's right,
that's,
right.
that's where
We
my
want
question.
to keep you out of this.
Yeah.
It really shouldn't be the city council has to fund this,
Yeah.
not just.
Especially you're talking now, we're talking about lakefront, which isn't downtown. I
No.
mean, you know, it's extended that far.
Right.
It's really not a bid thing. It's a city thing.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe for the next tax season, we can make a statement as an organization.
Yeah, good.
To support just what you said and what you've confirmed.
I presented to city council repeatedly, and before the last vote, I even gave them a detailed breakdown of exactly how it would affect us and what would be involved. And unfortunately, they didn't stand up for any of the projects that were on the.
Like I said, maybe we can support,
So,
we have a lot of power, but I should listen to us sometimes. All right, you gotta go, right?
I do.
Okay, well,
Log me out.
okay, you're outside. Just a couple, your director's report, we'll just put off to next.
You have to come by this afternoon.
David, you didn't have the YMCA OEO and all that, we'll just put off till next meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really nothing urgent there for what
The LDC did pass mortgage tax exemption for the YMCA.
Why? Okay, so that part's off the agenda. then. So we just have a couple of committee reports here. Lowell, you mentioned that
Thanks,
not
David.
much is happening.
Thank you.
oh, yeah, I met with my two partners. One's a builder, and one's an architect, and I've identified one home that is in the lower tier. That is just a simple improvement, has made a huge improvement to the looks of the building. I'm trying to get a list from the code enforcement office of respective different categories I've identified before. And I'm waiting to hear from them. As soon as I do, I've got input from a couple of like Lowe's and Hep Materials. They really do want to participate.
That's good.
And that I'm looking into what the plaques would look like.
Okay.
So,
Right. Well,
so
thank you for,
it's moving, yeah.
thank you for doing that. We've also had a GEDC committee meeting, which I missed. Anyway, there was not much discussed there. I think most of it was just to do with the current building, but I think we're going to probably morph into actually spending more time with the study that we're going to be receiving the end of this month. So I think that's probably more news to come.
I think as, you know, used to be a consultant, there has to be an endpoint for them. And then new services. like
Absolutely.
Grant writing and.
That's what we're going to
Be
evaluate.
fair with them, yeah.
Exactly. No, the final date will be this month, and then
Okay.
whether we go on beyond that, we have to understand it ourselves and what kind of listen to the recommendations and then ask for an RFP on that portion, next portion. All right, nominee committee, real quick.
We're looking for one. Many seats
We're
here,
missing
this
one.
board, one.
I believe one.
So if anyone knows anyone that would like to,
Like to recommend.
yeah, like to recommend, I believe, is there gonna be an email sent out? Asking maybe for folks or,
Yeah, I've got it on my notes here if you, well, So you want a formal announcement about to the city?
I don't know if we need to do that
We
now.
ran the ads.
We used
Yeah,
to do
like the
that.
city updates and on the website.
Yeah, maybe that would be at least useful
When do you want that? Do you want it after the first of the
Yeah.
year?
after the first year.
Yeah.
Anyway, as RJ said, a lot of times it's just people that we know,
Right,
that we would recommend. That.
and there's
we
an
know that we-
application on the city's website,
Yeah, on the clerk's page, the city website.
so.
Everybody I run into that's either new to me, I've asked, and some people have already served years ago. They don't want to do it again. And then those are local professionals I know. And but I ask new people all the time. As soon as we chat, I ask.
Okay, okay. I think we're at the end here. Our illustrious director has left, so we should probably just make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All right, thank you, Catherine. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting's closed. Thank you much.
Yes.
Everyone have a nice holiday.
Yes,
See you after the
you
first of the year.
too.
I have a question.
Take care.
Bye, see you
Oh,
guys.
thanks, David. Take care.